you think tomorrow Spielberg gonna call you. You think you're getting there, and you start kind of realizing after a little bit, and of course you have to mature like a fine wine with that, right?
Yeah,
You start looking back at your work, and you got to realize that, hey, the things that I've shot, crap,
yeah.
and the people I'm with, this is a dead end. Like, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And essentially, that was kind of like a breaking point for me, because I realized that all those little projects I'm doing
Mhm.
have absolutely no future. All right, there we go. How's
Awesome.
it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Good.
Awesome. Awesome. So, first of all, thank you for joining me on Socialcast.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's awesome that you're even here. So, first of all, just explain to the people that are listening who you are and what you do briefly, and then we'll dig deeper into it.
Well, I've known to be as a Aram K on the YouTube.
Yeah.
I've been doing the color grading channel for about, I would say, 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I am basically a freelance colorist and cinematographer that taking my time in educating public how to do color grading on YouTube. So if we're gonna summarize, that's gonna be it.
It's an essential thing that you're teaching people. Let me tell you that.
It's a very important thing, and it's actually, there's a interesting story behind it. When when I first started getting myself into filmmaking,
Mm-hmm.
I started as a cinematographer right away.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try to make it as PG as possible, and
Go for it.
essentially, like, every project that I've shot was completely screwed over down the pipeline by either editor or colorist. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, I had no idea how to color grade or anything like that. I was just, filming.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, of course, Mark II, Mark III, DSLR era, before Black Magic,
Yeah.
start popping those cameras. And essentially, I figured, I was so disappointed seeing, this typical magic bullet kind of look on the screen. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, I actually advanced towards being more colorist now than actually cinematographer. So it took me about 10 years probably to perfect this whole thing.
Wow. It's 20 years.
10 years.
Oh, 10 years. I thought you said
10
20. I'm like,
years.
ooh.
Yeah. No,
10
I'm
years
not
is
that
still
old.
10 years is still long. So what first of all even got you into filmmaking?
Since I was a kid, I kind of liked photographing,
Mm-hmm.
and filmmaking was, to be honest, completely random. And it's actually a very interesting story. When I went to college to be a detective. I actually wanted to be a cop. You know,
Okay.
this kind of scenery always been interesting to me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What happened when I was taking those classes, economy kind of went down, and
Mm-hmm.
all the government jobs like a border patrol and the police and all that, they essentially stopped hiring. And they
Okay.
told us straight up, like, you can get your certificate of being like a police officer, but you're not going to get hired. And
Okay.
I, at that time, I figured, damn it, so I dropped out and I started working in a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
in a casino. During that time, I bought one of those like point and shoot cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those first point and shoot cameras that had 1440p mode on it. So you
Okay.
can imagine there's no depth of field, nothing. It's just like 1440p, and that's it. That's what you shoot.
Oh, jeez.
So at that time, Andrew Kramer was popping those After Effects tutorials.
Mm-hmm.
So little by little, I was always kind of interested in that as well. A little by little, I kind of got into it. And, slowly I started following his videos on visual effects. At the same time, I figured, you know what, I have this crappy camera. I might as well like upgrade it. So that's how I got my T2i. No, yeah, T2i,
Yeah.
the
Great.
famous, everybody had that one.
Yeah.
And basically, that was the beginning of me really getting into that filmmaking world.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's a random accident that I
Yeah.
actually do what I do.
It's similar story to me, to be honest, because I was a dancer before this, but I used to film myself dancing. And that kind of dance over here in the UK, especially, is pretty hard to do. there's not many
Yeah.
courses on it. So I was like, okay, well, what else do I like to do? So I enjoyed the filming and editing process of when I did my videos. So I thought I'd do a media course to better my actual YouTube videos, and then it just turned out to be a career.
Pretty much, yeah. It's interesting how sometimes life throws those things at you, and you're
Yeah,
completely really not ready for it, and you just take it.
100%. But I think that's one thing that it's the beauty of. I think the reason why it relates to me so much is because it's still in the creative field. Like I
Hmm.
was a dancer, so I was expressing myself through dance, but I can now express myself through vision, which is just channeling that that direction to somewhere else and just putting me full force
Which
in
is
it.
in a way similar because you translate the body movement into the screen,
Exactly,
so you can completely relate to those things.
exactly. So how long was you a cinematographer before you became a colorist? And what was your process as a cinematographer? Was it something that was gradual, or did you end up getting into some good hands to start with? Like, what was the process?
My beginning career as a cinematographer was not good because, well, it was kind of delusional, like many other people who start.
Yeah.
You get in a group of people, you make those movies, you think you're getting somewhere, and I'm talking about the whole work for exposure, right?
Hmm.
You think tomorrow Spielberg gonna call you, you think you're getting there, and you start kind of realizing after a little bit, and of course you have to mature like a fine wine with that, right? You
Yeah,
start looking back at your work and you got to realize that, hey, the things that I've shot, crap,
yeah.
and the people I'm with, this is a dead end, like we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And essentially that was kind of like a breaking point for me because I realized that all those little projects I'm doing
Hmm.
have absolutely no future. But at the same time, it was very interesting experience working with the crews to kind of get your feet wet a little bit and like to see what relatively bigger productions are. You have 20 people on set. It's not big
Yeah.
set, but still it's something. It's much
Yeah.
better than just going and shooting by yourself.
100%.
So you start learning a little bit of that, and the most important thing in my opinion is really realizing and reflecting where you're standing versus everybody else. And you shouldn't, I think, compare yourself to others, but you should definitely reflect and be sober about what is your quality
That
like
is
what you're not doing correct.
that is such a good way of putting it,
Y-
because I feel
you
like
know,
this industry is very competitive in terms of people self doubt a lot. They always look at other people and think, "Oh, why am I in that position?" But the way that you described it is it's very good actually, because you like keeping yourself in check and you like being present in the moment of where you are and soaking it in and learning. I think the best thing about filmmaking is learning and being open minded. That's one thing I've
absolutely.
realized. Just being open minded and willing to listen and learn.
Well, my experience was, so I've done several short films, right? The
Yeah,
indie films, we're gonna call them like that. And um the experience was not really positive for me because in every single movie, even though I was titled as DP,
yeah,
I never really had a say of being a DP.
okay.
Essentially, the director told me, hey, put your camera on the sticks over here. That's what we're shooting. I
Hmm.
never kind of could tell them, hey, maybe we should do it this or that way. It was always tripod, and I was always just a guy pushing the button. So everything was just locked. There
Yeah.
was never a dynamic in the shots and whatnot. So after a little bit you kind of start looking at it and it's like, that's not what I want to do.
Hmm.
And it's actually even interesting. 10 years later, I'm at the point right now, and I've shot commercials. I work with some celebrities and stuff, both in color and like on actual production.
Yeah.
I don't know if I also do photography. I do like fashion photography and stuff.
Hmm.
And even I work with the bigger crews, I actually start leaning more towards, again, being a lone wolf in the industry. Meaning that right now, I'm more interested, for example, in shooting a documentary rather than a movie.
Yeah.
And the reason is, again, this is my point about that a lot of times you come across projects that have a lot of potential, but once you start filming it, nobody really give that potential. You know what I mean? it becomes very stale, kind of boring film or music video and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I think as an individual who wants to do more, let's say Hollywood, right? Hollywood shots,
Yeah.
working in those kind of projects is become a little bit hazardous after a little bit,
Yeah.
because you cannot express really your creativity, and you become again the guy who just pushing the button, you know. And what's interesting about it, in the film industry, there's always the safe zone, same as, you know, photography. You go with the client and you don't really know what the client wants, so you kind of do this like safe blurry background, the portrait, you know. But then you look at that work and it's like, it's kind of amateurish, you know. Because for example, when I got into fashion, just like everybody else, I, you know, shot everything with a super blurry background and whatnot. But then once you start advancing, you start realizing it's like, hey, I want to see the background.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get all those details in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about like growing and kind of reflecting how you do things and sort of making the life decisions based on that.
100%. And who's like, which type of people have you worked with, just out of curiosity?
What is it?
What type of celebrities have you worked with? And also, what's it like working on sets, like big production sets? And have you worked on any feature films?
I have worked on quite a few feature films. For the celebrity, I can't say, just for the privacy reasons.
Okay.
One thing that I will say though, that the celebrity status doesn't always gives them a green card that they can get away with the things they get away.
Okay.
As a creative, you should always realize that you also important. And even though celebrity, let's say the person that pays the bill, you also should have your guard on and not let to be abused. Because in my experience, and believe it or not, actually quite few projects that I work with celebrities, like legit celebrities, end up going almost to a court with the lawsuit about the paying for the job. You know, we had projects where you complete the project and the person who you're in a contact with, the moment you submit the project, that's it. They immediately stop replying.
Yeah.
You know, and this is very ridiculous thing because that's how they get you. You know, we're celebrity. Of course, everybody wants to work with celebrities, right? But then at the same time, you wants to get paid for your work. So what happens that, you know, people let their guard down and they think, well, that's celebrity, they're not going to screw me over, whatnot. But this actually happens quite often. And I have a lot of friends in LA in the different industries. Like I have, you know, music composers and cinematographers, whatnot. And, you know, we always talk about certain things. And actually quite few of them experience that. So it's very interesting how sometimes the big project may look good on paper, but once you submit it, you're not getting paid for it.
So interesting.
So it's very interesting thing. And I'm not saying like everybody obviously, you know, like that, but I guess where I'm going with this, you always have to really watch out and be careful with your work before you actually submit it and it's done. Because the moment you submit it, nobody answers anymore, you know. And like
100%.
one of the longest project I had like that was like 5 months.
Ooh.
And for 5 months we were going back and forth on the phone, you know, and it basically got to the point where I told him, hey, if we're not going to get payment for this, like we're going to be speaking to a lawyer next time.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of got ugly in a way, but at some point you have to put your foot down and be like, hey, like how long we can really wait.
100%.
You know?
I think it happens quite often because those creators kind of do get pushed to the side a lot and we don't get credited for the things that we do. And I've had it as myself before, not with like any big mainstream people, but I've had it before with other clients and where they haven't paid as soon as they got the project. So I've changed the way I work now since that, but it's just crazy to think that celebrities and hiring people still continue to do that as normal clients do as well. Like, it's pretty crazy to think that.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of times, you know, the safest way, I guess, to avoid that, and that way may not be the best way, let's say, for somebody who's a freelance, is obviously working through the agency. When you work through the agency, you don't really have those problems, you know. But now, see, the market changes, and especially if you ever been in LA or worked in LA, it's a little bit different over there because LA is so oversaturated.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a lot of unprofessional people working in that market, you know?
Yeah.
We're talking about the crews and the actual talent.
Yeah.
So because of such an oversaturation, there's all those little problems occur, you know? So it's very interesting how they utilize that. Oh, you know, you're not going to do it. We're just going to get the next guy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that kind of a disposable labor force. That's essentially what makes us as a creatives to essentially get paid way less than, for example, we should.
Yeah.
Because now the market oversaturated. You know, everybody have 4K camera now. Everybody have, you know, DaVinci Resolve now. Everybody's a colorist now. You know, but when it comes to actual business, it's only a few people really talented, you know.
Yeah. 100%.
And that
And
kind of oversaturation caused a lot of problems in the industry.
yeah, it does. It really does. And I'm kind of glad that we touched on this subject because it's the harsh reality of this. I've got the word that I'm looking for, but this industry that we're in, and a lot of people don't speak about it. That's why I've done this podcast, because I love to speak about real life subjects as well as obviously people's careers. And
Yeah. I mean, this is the reality.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think this is glamorous. Like, you know, quite often people's like, oh, you know, you're filming all those girls and whatnot. You know, it's and you know what? The truth is, it is awesome.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people don't realize the kind of work that goes behind it.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times, for example, if I upload video or if I do a tutorial, people's like, hey, you know, can we get the footage, for example, this and that. What they don't realize that everything is essentially a legal contract.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if it's not my project, and if I don't have, let's say, a model release form, I cannot give that footage away.
Yeah.
You know, or if I'm shooting for a client, I cannot just give, you know, let's say Dutch commercial. I cannot have, you know, all that footage from the commercial out in the public,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, that a lot of it is logistics and legal stuff,
Uh-huh.
you know, on top of the fact that in some cases, it takes a lot of money and resources to actually go out there and film something.
Yeah.
You know, so it's another very interesting aspect of that, because it's quite difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. And it's something people obviously don't see as well, like all the pre-production, and then obviously the production side of things is kind of what they see. And then the post-production, which is what they don't see as well. So they only actually see a third of what we're actually doing.
Well, you know, just as a simple example, I'm planning a next little fashion video, maybe sometimes like 2-3 weeks. um the planning already started.
Yeah.
And it's like all day you're in contact with the model, you know, you seeing you're supervising what she gonna wear, right? Then based on that, or vice versa, sometimes with location, you have to scout location, you have to actually go there, you have to see it, you have to do so many things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all variable because at the last moment things may not even work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very complex really pipeline, I guess,
It is.
if you want to call it. Like a simple video of, you know, just one-on-one with model still requires a couple of weeks of preparation.
Yeah.
If you want to obviously make, you know, a decent quality out of that.
Yeah.
Because it's not you just go out and shoot. Then you also need to pay attention to what kind of lighting going to be, and, you know, time of the day, for example. And it's actually goes, for example, how I do it, it's actually goes as deep as what kind of haircut she got or he got, color of the skin, the clothing they wear, all those components, they basically like a snowball affect one another.
Yeah.
So when you go out, you know, you have to really make sure that everything gonna be proper, otherwise it may not necessarily work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a interesting behind the scenes kind of apparatus, how a lot of people on surface don't really see, you know.
Yeah, of course, 100%. And I'm glad we actually touched up on that. I kind of want to move on a little bit now to the colorist side of things. And how long, first of all, did it take you to get to where you are? And did you do courses to help that?
I never took any classes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Everything I've learned was a very hard grinding process.
Yeah.
And I actually I get those comments all the times when I make videos. Oh, you took this video from this guy and you stole this tutorial from that guy. A lot of those people don't realize when I started my YouTube channel about color grading, there were nobody on the market doing it.
Yeah.
I was one of the first channels, to start actually talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very long process because you can learn the buttons relatively easy. DaVinci Resolve is not really a rocket science. There's only few things out there.
Mm-hmm.
What really takes a long time is to understand that, for example, if you got the footage, you need to, as a colorist, of course, unless you have a director or a producer or whatnot telling you like specific thing, you need to understand what kind of look gonna work with this particular shot.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes again to a lot of experience because you immediately analyze it and you kind of look at the background, you look at the foreground, you look at the clothing, you look at the the talent in front of you. So you make those decisions based on a lot of factors, unless of course you have like a specified look to it.
Yeah.
And essentially that's what takes years to perfect.
Yeah.
For somebody to immediately analyze the shot and come up with a solution. Because, for example, when you have a live grading and you have like 5-6 people sitting behind you, which those are the worst, by the way.
Yeah.
And you're in a spotlight.
Yeah.
You can't be asking every single person out there what they want. They expect you to know what's going on. So you sit in this dark room and there's 5 people laughing like and cracking jokes behind you. You got to impress them.
Yeah.
And if you've seen my earlier videos, actually all my videos, I never prepare my videos. I never do any kind of script or anything.
Yeah.
Even for example, the videos where I'm matching the looks,
Yeah.
I don't match them before and then sort of like repeating the steps. I just keep rolling. I start, I know what my final look is and I know what I'm working with. And that's how I like to work because it gives you pressure.
Yeah.
And it's also, in my opinion, it gives more natural flow of the tutorial because it's not something that I rehearsed before.
100%.
It's a real situation where I just come up with things on a spot.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think this is the best way of learning things like that.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So do you feel like YouTube's kind of not necessarily the pressures you, but does it feel like it helps you obviously think on your feet and helps you learn different things? I feel like just from YouTube, I feel like I've challenged myself a lot to do different things that I wouldn't usually do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the same with YouTube?
YouTube is very interesting. YouTube definitely helped me to get a few very interesting gigs.
Yeah.
The career-wise, YouTube was very interesting. However, the latest YouTube algorithm pretty much completely buried my channel. So unless I'm making a video like once every 2-3 days, YouTube just killed my channel, which is interesting. Last probably year and a half, they implemented this new algorithm. I don't know. I'm a little bit disappointed in how YouTube operates now.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some pluses and minuses in YouTube. One of the things, obviously, with the YouTube, you have to sort of suck it up and prepare for a lot of shit comments and a lot of negativity to kind of go your way. And since I started, there's always somebody, making comments and whatnot. You just gotta let it go, and just go with it, because it definitely, if you're not mentally like ready for it, it can definitely ruin your day.
Yeah.
But because I worked in a restaurant for a few years, I kind of, prepared for anything.
Of course. Made with tough skin. I like it.
Exactly.
So what kind of is your inspiration when it comes to coloring? Like with a project, how do you plan for how to color a project, if that makes sense, if they don't have a brief?
So my inspiration comes from a lot of fashion. I'm a big fan of 80s, 90s Vogue.
Yeah.
You know, when the Vogue was still a magazine, not like a political
Yeah.
thing. I really like those glamorous photo shoots. You know, you flip through pages and like every picture it tells a story.
100%.
So the way I approach this, let's say I have a feature film,
Yeah.
and let's say that I have a creative freedom, because quite often people send it to me and they're like, hey, you know, we like your stuff, just do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I don't start that movie from beginning. I started a lot of times from the middle.
Okay.
I would pick like the money shot in that film,
Yeah.
because that shot, to me, it helps me, it kind of starts the drive in me to base the entire movie based on this fantastic shot.
Yeah.
So I will color grade that shot, and then from there I little by little will work backwards,
That's so
if
interesting.
that makes sense, and then
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
try to make everything to a par.
No, that does kind of make sense because the middle part of a film is usually when it's the climax. So it does kind of make sense.
It sets the tone for the entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Rather than, you know, sometimes movies start slow and you start color grading it accordingly, and then all of a sudden there's a spike in the middle, and then you start looking back and you realize, well, that's not really working what I've done.
Yeah.
So I think starting from the middle is really the best way to kind of set the tone for the entire project.
100%. It makes complete sense. What I don't know if you're allowed to. I don't know if you're allowed to mention the stuff that you've worked on, but what feature films have you worked on? If you've worked on any, and how long is the process?
You know, the process, I would say it can be anywhere from 2 weeks to about 4 months,
Ooh, that's a big deal.
depending how, you know, how quickly it goes.
Yeah.
One of the really cool feature film I worked on like a year and a half ago was Loco, and it's going to be released really soon.
Okay.
And this is one of the movies why I'm mentioning it, because it's a very, I'm not going to say very rare, but it's a rare example where I genuinely enjoyed the entire process, from the actual crew to the final delivery. It was one of those things where, you know, I enjoyed working with the DP. I enjoyed working with the producer. The communication was spot on.
Yeah.
The editor was fantastic. So it was very interesting how everybody were sort of down to earth, relaxed. Everybody knew what they got to do, and the whole process, even though the process took a little bit longer,
Yeah.
because it was offline color grading, so we had to, you know, do the pass, and then looks like I disappeared.
Yeah. I've lost you somewhere.
Hold on, let me start the video again.
Yeah.
You know what, I'm very surprised, I
What?
forgot to, so this is Blackmagic 4K,
Yeah.
and all that time I was speaking to it was actually on that single built-in battery. I forgot to plug it in the power. So that's quite
impressive.
interesting time.
Yeah.
Where did I stop? Oh yeah, so yeah, it was offline editing, and you know, with the submissions and whatnot, it took a little bit longer time to obviously get the final result, you know. And finally, I went to LA, and then we sat all together and we just like put the last touches on the project, and that was done. But very, very interesting collaboration. I really enjoyed it.
And then when it comes to jobs like that, are you always communicating with the crew at all times? Do you have Zoom calls at any point, or like what's the process in terms of you actually doing? Is it like step by step, or do you edit the full thing and then send it through?
You know, that really depends.
Okay.
The Zoom thing is basically a child of Corona, and you know, before there was really no Zoom. You know,
Yeah.
we would communicate over the email.
Yeah.
A lot of times when people send me a project, I ask them, you know, send me some stills or send me a reference video. What do you expect?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I actually turn down probably 90% of the gigs, believe it or not.
Wow.
Even in this like harsh economy, I turn down a big amount of gigs for the reason that sometimes people would shoot their project on DSLR. So they would send me, let's say, a feature film, and they would send me the reference images, and they'll be like, this is what we want the movie to look like. And from my experience, I know there's no way to do that.
Yeah.
And I know that this project gonna bite me in the ass later. So I just tell those people straight up, I'm like, hey, you know what? You've shot on this camera, it's gonna be impossible. You know, I can do a little bit based on what you have, but what you want is not gonna be possible.
100%.
So a lot of times I don't even pick up those kind of gigs, because what I've learned, if you're not comfortable working with something, it's better just not to take it, rather than, you know, have issues and phone calls and all that BS later down the line. Because it happened, you know, I had quite a few projects where it was complete BS, and it was just a nightmare. So at this point, I don't pick up projects where I know I'm going to be fixing things, because I want to grow as an artist and I want to create look, rather than getting, like, for example, a noisy shot and all I have to do just keep fixing the noise, you know. I'm not interested in those kind of things anymore.
It's good that you said that, though, because I've recently started to do that myself, and it's a lot of creators that don't do it. A lot of creators just take every project that comes their way, rather than actually do projects that they're really excited about. Because I feel like the best work are the projects that you obviously want to do, and you're investing your whole time and effort into it. And I think I'm at that switch now. It took me a few years. Like I started it when I was quite young, luckily, but I'm still young now, so I'm still always learning. But I'm getting to that point now where I kind of want to take on stuff that I'm actually happy doing. Don't get me wrong, I'll take on the odd few jobs just to get a bit of money coming in.
Especially absolutely.
But majority of the time, I feel that. I feel that a lot.
You know, it's a process.
Yeah.
You know, so once you reach a certain point in your career, you know, I probably wouldn't suggest people to turn down gigs. You know, ideally you want to take every gig that you want.
Yeah.
But at some point in your career, you wanna start making really good work. And if you're getting a crappy footage, unfortunately, doesn't matter what you do to it, it's still gonna be a crappy footage in the end.
Yeah.
So if you really want to have a proper career in whatever, I would probably suggest people to at some point stop taking all work just for the sake of taking it, you know, and really be selective about the kind of work they do.
Yeah.
Also, I would probably suggest people to charge appropriate amount of money for their work. You know, and I'm guilty of that. When I was first starting out, oh, feature film, $50, I got it. You know, and then I look back at it, what kind of idiot I was. You know, but I wanted to get my feet in the water, you know, to kind of experience it. However, from my experience now that, you know, I've done it for 10 years, and I know a lot of people who's been doing it for many years.
Yeah.
For anybody who thinks to follow the steps, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Even though the common sense suggests that it works, but it doesn't work. You know, those projects are time wasters, and I think people are going to be much better off. If you're a cinematographer, pick an iPhone, go outside, shoot something. You know, if you're a colorist, tons of footage online to download.
Yeah.
You know, find any footage, start grading. Do not grade those projects for, you know, for a few quids, I would say it, right? And then it's not, because it's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's degrading for an artist to be doing this kind of stuff, because this is a common thing nowadays that, you know, we sit in a mom's basement and we play Xbox all day.
Yeah.
You know, and believe it or not, even the people who know me for many, many years, they still think that's what I do. You know, that I sit all day playing video games, and they don't understand the amount of work that actually goes into it.
100%.
Like my work day, a lot of times 16 hours.
Yeah.
You know, 16 hours. And even I get a lot of that feedback from YouTube viewers too. They're like, oh man, you know, you're not making videos. They don't understand that actually color grading and cinematography is actual work.
Yeah.
I'm not glamorous YouTube boy, you know, making reviews, and, you know, YouTube is not my main thing.
Yeah, of course.
I do YouTube whenever I have like free time. I'll throw a video or whatnot. My main work is like filming and color grading. And a lot of times, especially when you get a feature film, you're locked with it.
Yeah.
And it's really time consuming process because you have to be on the phone calls, you have to answer emails. I have 5 websites, and then I have, photography too, that I keep getting like several photo shoots a month for that.
Yeah.
So, between this, it's very hard to really find time for all that stuff.
Of course.
So you kind of have to pick your schedule, and find a free time. Otherwise, you're just stretching too thin.
100%. And I think that's where a lot of people do get it twisted, because coming into this industry as a freelancer, or whether you start your own production team, just know it's going to be long hours and it's going to be consistently. You don't have no days off, really and truly. So yeah, I kind of really relate to that, and it is tough, man. And a lot of people don't. I don't know about you and your background or your family or anything like that, but my family kind of don't understand anything I do. They just see it as like, oh, he's sat down most of the time, not doing anything. Or when I'm out shooting, they just think it's a quick, an hour or two, and it's chilling, and like it's so easy. And it's like, no, it's like a full day thing. I'm doing all of this paperwork. I'm editing this. I'm doing YouTube. I'm doing all these other business things. It's just funny to think that's people's mentality when they see our stuff. But it is a
Well,
job.
absolutely. And actually, at this point, even with my friends and family, I don't even talk about things anymore.
Yeah.
When they ask me, how's my work, I just tell them it's fine. Because in their mind, I play Xbox all day, and I don't do anything. They don't understand. First of all, it's a mental. It's a mental process. Whether you go film or color grade, because in a way that you're always on a spot.
Yeah.
So you always have to mentally kind of prepare yourself for worse when you go out to film, especially if you go out filming by yourself.
Yeah.
For example, I had few like fashion photo shoots in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's cool.
And we scheduled the shoot like 2 or 3 weeks before.
Yeah.
So when we got to the desert, it was 120 Fahrenheit, which is like 45 Celsius or something like that.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, we're there. Let's do it, right? After a few shots, the camera basically got bricked.
Yeah.
Because it's so hot. And when you photograph, the sensor get hot, and it was disaster. But then, like, what do you do in this kind of situation? It immediately puts a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And outside people who never done it, they'll never understand the reality of that. They don't know what it is to schedule something 2 weeks, right? To drive for 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the desert just to get out the car, and here you go, your camera is not functioning because it's so damn hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to explain people who's outsider that those are things that happen on quite frequently, actually.
Very frequently.
Or sometimes you may have a dead batteries, even though you charge them night before. Things happen.
Yeah.
I had professional batteries. I'm not gonna be bashing the brands, but a legit, first top tier brands.
Yeah, of course.
I had situations where you charge them night before, you go on set, they're dead.
Yeah.
So it's always pressure no matter what you do.
Pressure and problem solving, always problem solving and figuring out how to overcome those problems. One thing I do want to touch upon, because I haven't really asked this question to any other creative, but we kind of touched on it a bit there. And how do you keep yourself mentally in check? Like for me personally, if I feel not creative, I'll just take the day off. Like I try to listen to my body and listen to what my body's telling me rather than trying to fight against it. Some days I will, obviously, because I've got a job. Say if I've got a job to do, I'll fight through it and do it. But if I'm ever feeling like my creative span's kind of not on the right level, either a day or two, I kind of just take time off and either watch YouTube videos about the industry. Like you don't always have to be doing something in the industry. You could be learning about it rather than. So yeah, I just wanted to know about how do you cope with mentally, like that mental space.
That's actually a really excellent question that I don't really hear people talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, one of my things, I like to spoil myself with coffees.
Yeah.
To me, it serves a dual purpose now. It's a coffee, obviously caffeine, I also feel like getting myself a little treat before I do something is sort of a little boost mentally that, hey, I got this treat, now I got to get the shit done.
Yeah.
That being said, a lot of times I was going on photo shoots or gigs where I was feeling like shit.
Hmm.
Problems at home, problem this, problem that, human stuff.
Yeah.
So you go in and your head is like a balloon, and what do?
Hmm.
Um, the answer is I don't have an answer. I
Yeah.
got used to working under pressure, so I got to a point where I will deliver quality image.
Yeah.
It may not be, if I'm feeling like shit, it may not be the best work.
Hmm.
However, I can always guarantee that it's going to be to a certain level of quality,
Yeah.
How to deal with that? It's a good question, man. Probably stay away from toxic people before.
Good answer.
Uh, take vitamins,
Yeah.
so you at least like physically feeling all right,
100%.
because I got super fat doing post production. I used to be 140 pounds, like super skinny.
Wow.
You know, a lot of times you do post production, you eat shit food, pizza, whatnot.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got super fat.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, you still have to be energized and be able to do things.
Hmm.
So sometimes I drink energy drinks to kind
Yeah.
of get myself like artificially boosted, inspired.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you got to do what you got to do.
Hmm.
Obviously, I don't believe in any kind of drugs, even though I know a lot of people that they do like substances to get like creative and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. Not in a way that I don't believe it working. I don't believe going that route because then it's not really my work.
Yeah. Of
I
course.
feel like if a person as an artist you start doing that, then you get completely hooked up to it,
Yeah.
and you take away from your normal sober mind creativity, and you basically let it, pills do the job.
100%. And I'm not the one to advise this to anyone, but I used to do like smoke weed
Hmm.
um, for many different reasons. But obviously, I heard rumors that, oh, yeah, it helps with your creativity and all that sort of stuff. I didn't take it for that reason, but I just thought, oh, well, that's a positive.
Well, I mean, from the simple chemistry perspective, it relaxes you, you're relaxed, and off goes your head, right? um
But I think that's where the
yes.
problem was. I was too relaxed. So when it got to actually coming down and doing something, I just
Yeah.
wanted to sleep or eat.
Yeah.
So
i I mean, that's the side effect.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
you
So
know I've done it. I've smoked,
yeah,
and few times I don't consume any substances, whatnot, but few times I've done it actually as experiment.
yeah, yeah,
I've tried it. I have absolutely no tolerance to that, like one puff and off I go, but it is work in a way that you kind of get creative, but you get creative because you're relaxed.
yeah.
It sort of separates you from your problems. You forget about things and you kind of become more relaxed. Would
Hmm.
I recommend doing it? No, because then it's not really your work.
Yeah,
You essentially just become like a body of something else, and
yeah,
you know because a lot of times the client would be behind your back. What are you going to do? You're going to be like smoking in front of them because it's not professional.
100%.
So I think in a way that artists need to be able to, even let's say if it's not artistic, I think at some point you should be able to have few tricks, in your pocket that you can get away and satisfy to at least a certain point of
Yeah,
quality. That's how I see it.
100%. And it's finding a balance. Like heavily advised, don't take substances. But if you are the person that does help with that, I think yeah, just take it in doses, not go OTT with it.
Well, unfortunately, me doing this for 10 years and working with the various, type of people and gigs, whatnot,
Yeah,
substance use exists quite often. I've been on set where models were on coke, where
yeah,
gaffer like drunk, like, you know,
Yeah.
step away from vomiting all over the place. I've been on those sets. It's not professional, but can you blame those people? No, because you really don't know what's going on in their life. And in
Exactly.
the end of the day, if everybody perform to a standard, it's like, you know, do what you got to do. Again, I'm not advising it. I'm completely against it, but I've experienced, you know, all kinds of sets, you
Yeah.
know, so it's one of those things where film industry is, I guess, film industry in a way is very close to restaurant industry. If you ever
Yeah.
worked in a restaurant, you know that somebody always on coke, somebody always on speed. You know, you have the bus boy smoking weed in the back. So it's very similar actually to that.
Yeah. That's funny that you said that. This industry is just so fun. Like there's never a dull moment in this industry. I think that's really why I like it. It's just so fun.
It is. It's a great industry to be. But you also in this industry you need to put yourself in a way that you're being respected as
Hmm.
an artist rather than a shitbag that pushing record button. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the market is so oversaturated with a low talent people. And I'm not, you know, saying that people shouldn't be learning. The problem with the low talent that they get camera, they shoot the sharpness test in their kitchen, and then they immediately run out there, they do the website, they advertise their photography services and whatnot. Don't do that. That's my thing to those people. Don't do that. Learn how to do quality first
Yeah.
and then go and do it.
Hmm.
Because from the very beginning, if you're going to say, let's say you're a portrait photographer, right? And you go in and you photograph shit, that's going to stay with you. The
Hmm.
rumors in, you know, they spread pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
especially if you live like in a relatively smaller town, people are going to say, hey, that guy over there, he's a shit. So that's what a lot of those people do. You know, they advertise themselves as professionals, but they cannot deliver.
Yeah.
Not only they putting themselves in a very bad position, but they also, you know, it's always this idea, right? I'm smarter than this guy. You know, he charges 500. I'm gonna charge $50, but I'm gonna have 100 clients a week, right? There's always this mentality. I'm gonna undercut everybody.
Yeah.
So when those people start undercutting everybody around the world, now this industry dropped.
Hmm.
Like from for example, my perspective as being also a fashion photographer, I can tell you that photography business is borderline dead.
Yeah.
You know, there is no more sets, there is no more like this, you know, mysterious feel about the photo shoot. You know, there's no excitement.
Yeah.
Anybody now can just buy a preset, you know, go in and shoot with a Sony camera and that's it, you
You
know.
see that so oftenly as well. People just
Yeah.
applying presets on the photos and things like
And unfortunately, that's very interesting phenomenon too. Unfortunately, that somehow that low quality is passing on the Instagram and people think that this is okay.
that. Yeah.
You know, 10 years ago, you'll look at this work, you'll be like, what is this? You know, now it's the trend, you know, not
Yeah.
that's how you do it now. So I don't know. I'm a very old school. I like quality, you know. Even when I retouch my pictures, I always like zoom into the, you know, whatever I can take maximum. I retouch everything. So if somebody gonna print it out size of entire wall, there's not gonna be like a smudge or anything like that. It's got to be like very highly edited. But standards are changing, I guess. Now Instagram dominates, you know, even with the video production. Now I see, you know, people buying those Sony cameras and they just keep popping videos. Very low quality, but they oversaturate the market, you know?
Yeah. They do. They do. They really do.
So it's very difficult if you're not really established yourself in the industry to actually become somebody.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
And I think people will appreciate the art, but only like certain people do, because like I say, because it becomes so oversaturated and people are doing it so cheap and undercutting themselves. The point is that people are kind of not appreciating the art as much and just appreciating how cheap they can get someone. And that's such a shame because this industry, it is art, and you should be looking at people's work as an art form rather than, you know, pricing.
Absolutely. And you know, it's actually what is interesting. Um, and this is again, this is like my take on this.
Yeah.
As you know, and I'm sure it's everywhere around the world, there's a lot of new brands. There's a
Yeah.
lot of new fashion clothing and all that, right? Everybody's a fashion designer now.
Everyone.
What I find very interesting, that a lot of times they use that cheap photography in their advertisement. And for example, me, if I walk on the street and I come by, let's say, a big poster or advertisement of a very low quality photography, like to me, that brand is a joke
Yeah.
because it's something that should be, phenomenal work because you advertising your brand. But
Hmm.
if your brand have a very low quality Instagram style, to me, they're not serious. And I think a lot of those brands, they sort of shoot themselves in the legs when they go and they get those low quality people to do either photography for them or video editing or even like commercial too,
Yeah.
so you look at this low quality work and it makes you wonder, is that what the brand is all about? Because like to me, the advertising campaign really reflects what the brand is.
100%.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if you into fashion, or I'm not as I used to be. But for example, if you look at the Guess, let's say, and if you look at their, fashion campaign,
Yeah.
those are phenomenal images. Or if you look at the True Religion, those are phenomenal sets. Everything is correct. The lighting, the models, the editing, it's, A plus.
Yeah.
But then you look at some of those newer brands and it's, iPhone picture is like, if you
Yeah.
guys try to compete, at least understand the fact that you're competing against big boys and we really need to step up in quality.
Yeah. And I think one, like, I quite like the branding, but one that's really like a good example of that is Boohoo Man. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
over in America. I don't know if you've heard of Boohoo Man, but yeah, that's like their campaign videos. They've got Offset in their campaign video, and it's like so standard, and you're just like, uh, it's just yeah. I completely agree with what you're saying there because it is like that's representing the brand, and it looks a bit cheap and tacky. So yeah, people kind of like I said, people kind of need to start seeing it more as an art form. But whether they will or not, I don't know because this industry is just becoming more cheap and cheap and cheap.
Well, you know what's interesting too? There's a two ways that we think. We can think rationally, right? And I can understand that those companies don't have big budgets, which actually you can make a fantastic commercial for next to nothing.
Yeah,
At the same time, what they don't understand, that subconsciously, we all as a humans, we're still looking into that quality. We're still looking into that high end, 90s fashion commercials.
mm,
So when those brands deliver cheap commercials, subconsciously, if people see that, they're not really attracted to it.
yeah,
And that's an interesting difference, because if you look at a lot of successful companies that do clothing, whatnot, the ones that are successful actually put a lot of money into advertisement.
yeah. I've noticed that.
y- you know and it's interesting how now everybody sort of going this route. Oh, I have a friend or have my uncle with a camera, he can do it. Of course he can do it, but from the perspective of, is this going to reflect your brand?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and I think a lot of brands don't understand what they want sometimes, and it's like I think a brand needs to figure out their marketing strategy and their imagery before they should start releasing things.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
unfortunately, we're living in such a fast world at the moment because of social media. They just want to get things out quickly and not think about everything.
From so I've been shooting fashion for a while now.
Yeah,
And the fashion, so how now we live in this like politically correct world, and everything needs to be, everybody needs to be holding hands and sing kumbaya, right?
yeah,
But the reality of this world, that whenever you have a campaign, let's say you have a fashion campaign, right?
yeah,
Unfortunately, despite all the modern, craziness that's going on with it, it comes down to who is your target audience,
hmm,
you know and by that, you select the model of the certain type, whatever your target audience is.
yeah,
You actually go to a certain location, you do a certain makeup, you do certain clothing.
hmm,
And I feel like a lot of these or those fast brands, they have no idea about that.
Yeah.
And it's a simple marketing. Like, for example, you have 7-Eleven in UK, I'm sure.
We don't, surprisingly. But
Okay, but you
I
know
do know
about
about
7-Eleven, right?
yeah.
So 7-Eleven is very interesting because the way they do merchandise goes very, very deep into demographic.
Yeah.
You can have two 7-Elevens across the street, and they're all going to carry the different items because based on exactly demographics. They take into consideration, who lives in this neighborhood, the age, the gender, this, and that, and they do
Wow.
study what are those people more likely to purchase.
Yeah.
The fashion is a very same way. Well, not just the fashion, like any kind of a media world, right?
Yeah.
People do commercials to sell the product. But if you just randomly, get people and you go and film nonsense, really, you're not really selling your product.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you need to know what is your target audience.
Yeah.
Are they going to be little kids, or are they going to be teenagers, or are they going to be adults?
Yeah.
In this, for example, in this time of the year, what are people more likely to wear? So all this goes so deep when you actually prepare for the photo shoot that you need to know absolutely every single aspect of that. Because if we're looking, for example, at the global scale, let's say like something like Guess, for example, right?
Yeah.
Just a random brand, by the way. It can make a difference in millions of dollars revenue.
100. Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And what's interesting that because of this fast moving market, it seems that for some reason everybody choose to ignore analytics.
Yeah.
Especially now we have so much more data that we can really manipulate and see, okay, this is the perfect audience for this and those people perfect audience for that, right? But everybody choosing to ignore that magic data, which everybody should be using it. And of course, I'm not suggesting really, obviously just basing it purely on numbers, but it's from the marketing perspective, is a smart idea to do. And nobody does it. All those new brands, they just go, they shoot this typical Instagram filter image, by the white wall, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, that's a campaign. Well, that's not really. They don't understand how much really money they're losing.
Yeah.
Instead of, for example, hiring a professional, paying them maybe a few $1,000s or pounds, making the legit stuff, and then cashing out, 10 times more in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another very interesting thing.
Yeah, that was a very valid point. I feel like there's been so much great information in this podcast. So I hope people appreciate this.
I hope so too.
Kind of wrapping it up a little bit now. I just kind of want to touch upon, first of all, your future goals, and then for the people that are listening that are coming up in this industry, any advice? Like, I know there's tons of advice that was said, but kind of like wrapping it up, any advice to anyone that's kind of like coming up and what they should know and what do and don'ts they should do, and that's it really.
Never become a filmmaker. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, filmmaking is great. People should not listen all those negative commentary that no, you can't, this and that. One thing, and it's going to be the best advice people will ever hear, is never stop learning.
Yeah.
Learning should be always, no matter how good you are, because every day, for example, every day I learn something new. Even though I've been doing it for 10 years, but believe it or not, I'm not watching other tutorials because I kind of know it all, but I never miss opportunity to watch behind the scenes of some movie. I think behind the scenes is the most valuable piece of information anybody can see. You pick your favorite movie, you look at the behind the scenes, and immediately you can see where's the light source, where's the reflector, where's the camera, and then you compare it to actual movie, and then all of a sudden you understand how this was shot.
Yeah, you see the light, you see the bounce.
You see exactly. You see the bounce, you see the net, you see all those things, and if you really pay attention, this is, in my opinion, the best film school anybody can take, just behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you start seeing the pattern and once you start seeing the whole process behind it, if you really dedicated to it, I think anybody can really learn it within a few months without any kind of film school, whatnot.
Yeah.
Also, my another advice would be for people who wants to be a filmmaker is not to go to film school,
Yes.
but instead save the money, get yourself a nice camera, a nice lights, you know, a nice lenses, and just go and make your own movies.
Yes. I stand strongly by that.
The only benefit of going to film school is connections.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times those connections can return and benefit you. You know, let's say if one of your mates going to become a film producer, you know, you may benefit from that down the line.
Yeah.
However, there's all those Facebook groups, there's all those meetups and whatnot. You can meet with those people over there.
Yeah.
But I would definitely not recommend people going to film school, and rather, you know, I don't know about UK, but in America, it's about $60,000 to go to film school.
It's similar here. Yeah.
So for that kind of money, I mean, look at Black Magic, right? 6K camera. That's what, 2,000 pounds?
So cheap. Yeah.
You know, another 2,000 pounds, you buy a zoom lens, a good zoom lens. There you go. You know, you buy a gimbal, another, let's say, 1,000. You buy a few batteries. So 5,000 pounds, you have entire setup.
Mm-hmm.
Another 5,000, if you're really crazy, you buy LED lights.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you completely set.
That's your business.
So 10,000 pounds, you have a complete setup, and you can go, and essentially you can go and film a feature film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus, you know, a couple years in film school where you're not really doing anything. And by the end of the film school, you don't even have a camera.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
That is like spot on advice. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time so much.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome. It's actually been great talking to you.
Absolute pleasure, man.
I like how free it's been. Usually I write stuff down. Like I said, I've got stuff down here. But
Oh, nice.
I never actually asked any of them because it just came in so naturally.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
No, it was great.
Yeah, it's been awesome speaking to you. And anytime that are you based in America? Yeah.
Yes, in San Diego, hour and a half south from LA.
Nice.
I'm actually right by the border of Mexico.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's another cool thing too that I can go and film there.
Yeah, it's a great location, that area.
But in Mexico, you got to be careful where you point the camera. So, you know, that's another advice.
Yeah.
Another advice too would be, you know, be careful where you point the camera, because depending on certain regions, you know, it may not be welcome.
Yeah. But yeah, and if I'm ever near your ends, I'll definitely drop you a message. It'd be great to meet up with you. And again, I appreciate your time so much.
Pleasure.
Awesome. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Stay in touch. Bye-bye.